black hollow tightens its laws in blood and parchment. Adrian's devotion turns deadly. Selina's faith becomes a blade. And Evelyn learns what it costs to be chosen. Stay close, because the dark remembers who listens and those that ignore its warnings.
Night began a few minutes earlier than it had the day before, as if dusk had discovered vanity. Nate stopped laughing in the margins of his notebook. He measured things instead. The seconds between footfalls that never reached the end of the hall, the exact way the light refused to grow teeth. He sketched the innkeeper's face and left the eyes blank because he could not remember if they had color. He passed the church and heard no prayers. He passed the butcher and smelled rosemary and iron. He passed a house with a cradle on the porch and counted rocks in the yard and wondered how many names this town had never said out loud. On the 5th day, or the same day repeating itself, he found the library again because it wanted him. Adrian sat in the same chair, reading the same book, or all books. "You look tired, Dr. Carver," Adrian said without glancing up. "This place doesn't let anyone sleep," Nate said. His hands were steady now. His voice was not. "Perhaps it doesn't want you to." "What is it you want?" Nate asked, because present tense questions sometimes distract predators. Adrian closed the book. The fire painted his face in warm tones that meant nothing. "To see how quickly you learn." "I'm not a puzzle," Nate said. "You are," Adrian corrected gently. "Men always are. The trick is admitting how many pieces you've lost on the way to the table." "You're not normal," Nate said. He wanted to say more grand things. "You're a nightmare. You're a myth in a suit." What came out was the truth that fit in his throat. "You're not human." "No," Adrian said, and stepped closer. "Better." Nate's breath hitched. "You feed on us," he whispered. "You've done it for centuries. And the town." He gestured helplessly with the notebook. "They're part of this. All of them." Adrian's gaze warmed as if a student had finally shown his work. "At last," he murmured. "What happens to me now?" Nate asked. He had rehearsed bravery in the mirror at 15. It had not survived this room. "That depends," Adrian said, close enough now that Nate could see the darker ring around the green. "On whether you can keep a secret." Nate did not say "I can" or "I won't." He drew in a breath that smelled like iron and rosemary and something older. "Evelyn is mine," Adrian said. "Not cruel, only true." Nate nodded as if acknowledging a weather report. He left the room because he chose to put feet in front of each other while he still had a choice. Selina's sermons turned into instructions. "Stand here, wear this, smile like this." She sent a dress to Evelyn's room the color of a bruise. "He will look at you like you are law if you wear this," she said in a note that didn't match the curve of her usual hand. Evelyn put the dress on because she wanted to see if the prediction was true. It was. She found Adrian in the music room. The piano had been tuned for no one for a century. She walked past him and he said her name once as if that were a command and a prayer intertwined. His hands found her waist with the certainty of a mapmaker who had drawn these borders himself. Her back met the instrument. Dust rose like a small storm. He kissed the hollow at the base of her throat. Didn't bite. "It isn't," she said. He preferred her feral. She learned that quickly. He was careful without looking careful at all. Hand behind her skull where wood waited. When his teeth grazed skin and his pupils went wide with the thought of it, he murmured, "Yes or no." The house learned their sounds and made space. Afterward, she lay with her cheek over his heart and felt the slow animal there remember things it had not known in centuries. "You're too sure," she said. "I've had time to practice," he said. "Do you like that?" "No," he said, and smiled into her hair. "And yes." He grabbed her in hallways simply to feel her resist and choose. She tolerated it because she liked the fury that rose in her when she shoved him off. He laughed and kissed her harder. The women of the coven clicked their tongues like birds and measured territory with their eyes. Selina tried a different tactic. She found him on the ridge road. "You should go," she said, light as pity. "I'm working on it," Nate said. His humor was a candle at the bottom of a well. "You think you owe her something," Selina said. "You do not. She belongs to us now. You were a nice thought. We are not thoughts. We are appetite and restraint. He is restraint, most days." Nate turned to look at her, brows raised. "You love him," he said, like naming a species. "I am consecrated to him," she said, and the word had the weight of a vow. "He made me. He denies it, but he made me. You cannot take a god from his altar. He says it wasn't him." "He lies," she said. "He lies to himself about many things." "Does he lie about letting me go?" Selina smiled sweetly. "He will let you go because you are not interesting." "Can I get that in writing?" Nate asked, because sarcasm is a kind of prayer. She stepped closer, perfume colder than snow. "Let me distract you. For a night, for a month, until you forget the shape of her mouth when she lies to you." "I'm not your toy," Nate said again, "and she doesn't lie like that." Selina's eyes sharpened. She had hoped to parade him before Adrian as proof of Evelyn's fragility. She had hoped to make him stumble into sin and hold it up like a mirror. Instead, the human remained inconveniently loyal. Her smile went thin. "You will die," she said with gentle certainty. "He will make it painless because he is merciful." "Good to know," Nate said. "I'll put it in the brochure." She left him with the road and the fog and the sound of his own breath. He had never felt so lonely without being alone. The council convened for the word they refused to call a trial. They did not summon Adrian. He arrived. He once again stood at the end of the table like the noble he was. He leaned on the table and made the furniture nervous. "The human goes," he said without preface. "Why do you refuse to turn him?" the elder asked. "He is useful. His eyes are trained. Those are rare." "Because 2 missing scientists means a file," Adrian said. "Because turning him means teaching him how to live here, and I do not keep another male near her." He didn't say the last part. He said instead, "Because our law is young and must be kept until it is bone. We will not break it for convenience." "And if he talks?" a young vampire asked, hungry for permission more than answers. "Then we handle it," Adrian said mildly. "We have handled worse. Men vanish into mountains every year. We do not need to make the mountain greedy." They voted. His choice won narrowly. The elder watched him over steepled fingers. "You have reasons you do not say, Lord," she observed. "I always do," he said. They let it stand because power is sometimes nothing more than the willingness to say no and keep saying it until people mistake the word for weather. Nate saw Evelyn a final time before the world decided to be finished with him. They met under the eaves of the general store where the rockers never rocked. She held a paper cup of coffee that smelled like exile. "Go," she said. "Please." "Tell me to go and mean it," he said, wanting to hear truth even if it hurt him. "Go." She swallowed. "Please." "You're not safe," he said softly. "Then trust me to do what I have to," she said. "I'll come back when I can." "You won't," he said, and smiled because he needed to use his mouth for something tender. "You'll make a porch light where you are and call it home." She made a sound that might have been a laugh if it hadn't had so much break in it. "You know me too well. That's why I came." He touched her knuckles with 2 fingers, the gentlest goodbye he knew how to give. "I'll be around," he said, "even if you don't see me." He would not remember later how her eyes looked as he said it. He would remember the smell of iron and rosemary, the gray bruise of the light, the precise way the town seemed to breathe when he turned away. Selina's patience wore itself to the wire under the velvet. She had tried kindness. She had tried seduction. She had tried prophecy. None of it moved Evelyn from Adrian's orbit. So she did what zealots do when doctrine fails. She reached for violence. It was a narrow corridor with tapestries that swallowed light. Selina's smile was honey that had spent too long in smoke. "I loved him before you were even a thought," she said, walking Evelyn backward the way a tide moves a body, gentle and implacable. "I stood by him when empires fell. I am worthy. You are a flame that will go out." Evelyn saw the wire too late. Selina was going to take off her head. The air split. Adrian was there. He slammed Selina into the wall hard enough to make the plaster crack where it had never admitted weakness. His face was stripped of elegance. Only predator, only lord. He did not shout. He did not perform. He put his hand through her chest and closed it around her heart. Selina's eyes widened, and awe replaced hatred. "Adrian!" His voice was Winterstone. "You mistook my patience for weakness, my devotion for leash. This is your last mistake." He tore. Blood sounded like rain on stone. The coven froze. The house listened because the house had always been listening. Adrian lifted his voice and gave the law shape. "She is mine. She is your lady. Any hand that rises against her, I take at the shoulder. Any mouth that envies her, I fill with ash." They bowed, some out of love, some out of terror, all out of understanding. He turned to Evelyn, and his hands shook for the first time she had ever seen them do it. "I did not want to kill her," he said, a sentence that meant I would do it again. "I know," Evelyn said, and hated that she did. After blood law, after spectacle minutes, Black Hollow had always been at its safest when it could write a rule. Evelyn made sure this time that marriage was kept sacred. It wasn't an afterthought. That if someone was in love, they needed to make it known before, but that instinct for that mate must be respected. "Why didn't she just stop?" she asked Adrian. "I met her when she was first turned. The one that did that was irresponsible. He thought he was giving her mercy, saw a young girl starving and wanted her to feed off something more available." He continued. "She was abandoned by her parents who couldn't afford to keep her. Selina was a victim of circumstance, and I didn't want her to go through that again. At first, her loyalty was touching, but as she matured, it became obsession, and I had to keep her at arm's length." Evelyn looked at his hands. The hands that were gentle with her had just ripped out a heart. Didn't she know? Did she just ignore it? He knew what Evelyn was thinking. He knew she was frightened of him on some level, which Evelyn should have been from the beginning. But her lovely feral stubbornness wouldn't allow it. "I told Selina that I thought of her as a sibling, as a friend. But she told me I would see her as the woman she had become eventually. I never did. And then I came in the picture," Evelyn finished. "Yes, you did, and she didn't listen," Adrian said sadly. "I did it as a last resort, my love. When I give warnings, when it comes to one of ours, I give multiple chances until I can't. I just feel," Evelyn paused, "I will do what I need to do to protect my house and my people, and soon you will feel the same way," Adrian interrupted. "I plan for children, and I will not have lawlessness in here when we are already that." Laws were redone so that everyone was safe, so that those that thought about doing something like this again would not. There would be no more warnings. There would only be reporting. He yielded where the language mattered more than the weight. She yielded where the weight mattered more than how it was described. They compromised, which is to say, they created a third thing neither could have made alone. She signed first. He signed second. The coven signed last, some with ink and some with blood, and one with a mark of teeth because old habits die dramatically. She looked at the new law placed, thinking of Nate, thinking of her human life that could have been. Evelyn saw a life with him too, but he was alive. "You kept your promise," he said. Adrian appeared like a ghost whenever she thought of Nate. Part of her still resisted, which he both loved and hated. "There was a promise?" she asked. There was no asking, just taking. "You could have tried to leave with him. I would have brought you back, and only you." Still, Adrian held her close. "You love me. You knew when you saw me. You just didn't want to believe it." "Who could?" Then there remained the matter of Nathaniel Carver. Adrian found him on the Ridge Road, at a place where Fogg insisted on remembering it had once been river. "You lasted longer than I expected," he said, not unkindly. "I'm stubborn," Nate said. His humor was a scab he had picked through. Adrian stepped closer, and the heir did the polite thing of making room. "Listen to me," he said. "You have seen enough to ruin you and not enough to save you. Go home. Tell no one. If you speak, I will walk into your world. I can leave Black Hollow, but you—" He tapped Nate's sternum lightly with 2 fingers, a blessing that was not. "You leave only because I say so." "Is this mercy?" Nate asked, because he needed to know the size of the hand on his head. "This is logistics," Adrian said, "and a favor to a woman who once loved the daylight. Evelyn will be alive when you are old," Adrian said, and the kindness in his voice hurt worse than threat. "That is the best ending available to you." Nate nodded because refusing was a thing he no longer remembered how to do. The road behaved for him on the way down, satisfied that it had measured him and found him too large to swallow and too small to chew. He did not tell anyone what he had seen. He did not need to be told not to. 2 towns away, he woke to owls calling in a grove that had been empty for years. He took out a new notebook, Nocturnal Recoveries, Appalachian Sites, and wrote, "Something made a porch light up there." He underlined porch light twice and closed the book. Weeks later, back at the university lab that smelled of ethanol and old coffee, Nate turned his badge against the night door and went to the staff lockers. Evelyn's was still there, E. Hale and label maker tape peeling at the corner. He opened it as if it might hiss. Her field jacket hung like a paused sentence. He reached for the cuff, thumb finding the frayed seam she'd always meant to mend, and his breath stuttered. He pressed the sleeve to his face like a man listening for a tied-in cloth, and shed 3 quiet tears he did not wipe. From the narrow, wired glass window in the outer hall, 2 green points watched, patient, unblinking, too high to be an exit sign. When Nate lifted his head, the glass showed him only his own gray eyes. The hallway smelled faintly of rosemary, and the night air through the loading bay carried iron like a rumor. "Carver." His lab manager stood in the doorway, arms folded, concern trying to look like policy. "Talk to me. What happened out there? I've got the department asking. I've got admin asking. I've got everyone asking." Nate swallowed. "She took another position," he said, voice sanded down to basics. "Remote. Field heavy. Off-grid for a while. It's safer for her research." "That's it?" "That's it," he said. "She asked me to bring her things to storage." The manager waited for more. He offered none. What could he say without ending his life soon after? That he felt watched at the most random time. He signed a form with a hand that would not stop being gentle, and carried the jacket like a relic. A few hours later, the department inbox pinged. An email from Evelyn Hale. Not her usual .edu or personal account, but a new, scrubbed address that looked like it had been born yesterday. The message was brief, cool, professionally kind. She thanked the department for the opportunity, stated she had accepted a role with a private conservation consortium in the Ridge Country, would be unreachable for an indefinite period, and was resigning her position effective immediately. She added a line that sounded like her, if one ignored the way it did not breathe. "Please reassign my advisees. I have taken a post better aligned with my long-term field objectives." Nate read it twice, and heard the echo of a house where doors opened because a man said they could. He could see Adrian in his mind's eye typing everything. These things, these beings, so cunning and methodical. Selina was right. He could rule the world. Back in Black Hollow, dusk bit, and did not devour. Evelyn stood in it on the balcony until the sting felt like a crown. Adrian's hands found her hips like rings that had finally found their fingers. "You like the knife's edge," he murmured. "Who taught me that?" she asked. "I'm a terrible influence," he said, and kissed the place beneath her ear where the pulse used to be loud. He did not bite. Not then. She turned to go inside. He caught her wrist, decisive, not rough. She pressed her palm to his chest and said his name as a command. He let go at once, grinning without apology, and offered his hand instead. She took it. They walked the corridor like a law and its exception. No one in town took down the parchment with its neat signatures and the 2 puncture marks where a lord had, without thinking, held it in his teeth. No one asked why the owls had come back. No one asked why the road sometimes turned travelers around like a gentle hand on a child's shoulder. The story adjusted itself around the facts, the way stories do when they understand that truth is not an argument, but a boundary. When strangers in ridge towns asked about Black Hollow, the answer was a shrug that contained a decade of warnings. "It's quiet up there. They mind their own. Best you do, too."
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and comment. It truly helps the channel grow. But tell me, was this a happy ending, or a love reflected through a funhouse mirror? The next story arrives Monday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, The Reaper and the Lost Bride. A love forbidden by spiritual law. But will it endure, or will higher forces do what they must to keep order?